Hey YouTube, Wes here. Hope you guys are doing great. In today's video, we're going to dive right into all of the aftermath on the Senate floor yesterday, where 6 of the crypto CEOs and other C-level executives gave testimony and answered questions to regulators. Now, normally, this would be a pretty scary event. I mean, if history has told us in the past, there's one thing that we know that rings true. Legislators have no clue what technology is, let alone crypto. Well, today's video actually uncovers something a little bit different. It was more constructive than you might think. In today's video, I'm going to give you my commentary, my reactions and thoughts on this. Remember, I'm a former banker executive, so I've worked with regulators for a fair portion of my career, and I understand how they act and think. And while this is legislators, not regulators, all of this kind of goes hand in hand. So we're going to cover all of this in this video and a whole bunch more coming right up. Hey friends, Wes Spencer here. Thank you guys so much for joining. We're going to have fun today. In this video, it's going to be short and compact. We're going to dive into all of the pieces around what happened on Capitol Hill floor just yesterday. I'm going to give my comments, my insights, my opinions. Keep in mind, these opinions are my own, and this is not financial advice, none of that. I'm not your financial advisor. Never listen to a YouTuber, a crypto YouTuber of all people. You'll always go broke if you listen to them. They have no idea what they're talking about, including this guy right here. So there you go. So let's just dive right into this. One thing you can do for me as we start, remember, like, subscribe, bell icon, it really does go a long way. That YouTube algorithm, that pesky thing, when you hit the like button and you hit share with others, I'm telling you, it means a lot for me personally and for this channel. Check out all the subscriptions we have. A whole bunch of you guys have joined lately. Thank you for that. That's awesome. I love the support. Check out all the awesome merch. If you're on a regular computer, you'll see it down below, right above the comments. If you're on a mobile app, just go over to the store page on my channel if you want to check some of that awesome stuff out. Okay, so here's where we're going to start, is right here. This is CoinMarketCap's news, and they summarized a couple things for us. You know, again, you would think that this would be pretty rough, but, you know, I think we got some good things out of all of this. One thing that we see opened from Coinbase's CFO was this comment right here: without tailored legislative solutions that are openly debated with public participation, even me and you, what we're doing on this video today, the United States risks unnecessarily onerous and chilling laws and regulations. Whew, that sounds scary, doesn't it? And it could be that way. Let's make sure it doesn't happen that way. That's why videos like this, they matter. Opinions like mine and yours, they matter. Us sharing with regulators and legislators what we think, it matters. The voice of just regular people like you and me, it matters. Okay, so let's go in a little bit further. Couple things that I will say. Let's just start it this way. It was constructive, they said, and I think that's true, right? In fact, I just accidentally clicked on the link, but I think this is fine. We can still use this link. So this is what FTX CEO, which is a fairly large exchange, Sam Bankman-Fried, said this: I came in expecting some hostility and grandstanding. In other words, he came ready to go. He came ready for a debate, but instead I found the discussion to be by and large productive and helpful. In other words, not completely, you know, by and large, that usually means for the most part, and that's true. I'll give you some commentary and thoughts on that in just a minute. It wasn't all smooth, but a lot of it was. He says, I'm excited to keep engaging with lawmakers and regulators to define and refine the regulatory landscape. I think that's wise. I think that's smart. I think that is the truth of where we need to make sure that we end up. Because here's the deal. If we overregulate, we push innovation outside of the states, and that's the worst thing we should do. Just recently, I did a video and I included just some crypto news, and I included what happened in India with a lot of crypto becoming illegal there. And my comments on that is, that's really sad. Given that India is such an innovator and so much capital has been raised for startups and innovation in India itself, to rip out one of the most innovative areas of technology on planet Earth, being blockchain and crypto, that's sad. That's a shame. And I hope that regulators in India pull away from that and start to learn, hey, how do we embrace this and wrap our arms around it in a certain way that lets it flourish, but also lets us have some controls rather than push it out. Let's not do that here in the States. Okay, so let's continue a little bit. One of the things, if you want to see more from, what news have said about all of this, this comes from the Washington Post. I will put links in all of this in the description so you can see each of these things. But they said for the most part, they urged light regulation in this booming industry. And I think that's a pretty good summation, right? Like, again, I don't think you're seeing from any of these and many others in the space saying, we don't want regulation. So you have two ends of the spectrum here. One, we have no regulation at all, a true Wild West. Anybody can do anything how they want. It means that innovation is going to completely flourish. But you're also going to see problems, right? Like, I'm not going to give my overall opinions politically because I just don't think that's helpful on this channel. But we know on complete anarchy side of the house with full innovation, there's no checks to what amazing things could be created and built. However, we know on the other end of the spectrum that's completely regulated, we can stifle anything innovative at all. As an example, for the most part, look at banking on the retail side. I can go from one bank to the next for a home mortgage, and it's pretty much going to be the same experiences. We've regulated that almost into a commodity where there's not a lot of difference from one bank to the next, for the most part. I know that's not completely true, but for the most part. And so I would advocate, and I even think these CEOs and CFOs that came to Capitol Hill yesterday advocated, look, we're not opposed to regulation. Let's just make sure it's wise. Let's make sure it's not overbearing. Let's make sure it's, to the Washington Post's article, light. I think that's important. Now, I don't mean so light that it has no teeth, but certainly light enough to where we can foster innovation, but everyone gets their win. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and we're going to pick out a couple things here that I wanted to jump into. I thought this was interesting. Again, we're not getting political here. I'm just quoting what the Washington Post said that I think is correct, that there was sort of a divide between Republicans and Democrats, and just in terms of overall how they view crypto. And this is not like 100% it was this way, but across the board, they are right. The Democrats voiced concerns about the volatility, about consumer protections, about fraud and terrorist uses. Whereas Republicans were more concerned on, look, if we are too heavy-handed in regulation, we're going to snuff out innovation or at least chase it overseas. But it's, of course, not across the board. Let's also look right here from what Maxine Waters, Representative Waters, had to say in her opening comments. So she mentioned that, hey, look, the growth of crypto, one reason it's contributed to working families looking for alternatives to rebuild their nest egg by investing in crypto. And that's true. I mean, it really is. I run into so many people, especially when I travel. They're like, Wes, I watch your YouTube channel. It's awesome. And I've gotten into crypto myself, and I've bought XYZ, and I'm excited about this new potential for investment. Again, I'm not your advisor. I'm not giving you financial advice. Never listen to crypto YouTubers on anything. But I will say that's exciting, and she's not wrong. Senator Waters is correct. People are looking at it for that. So that's where I think some of the regulation insights come from and desire to regulate, to say, let's let people do that, but let's also have some amount of control here so that people don't completely lose everything if they don't know what they're doing. I see the points, right? But I also see the flip side of that as well, that some people might say, yeah, but the counter to that is, Wes, they shouldn't be getting involved in it if they don't know what they're doing. Fair point. And then also she goes on to say this: no overarching or centralized regulatory framework exists, leaving investments in the digital asset space vulnerable to fraud, manipulation, and abuse. I don't like that comment. See, here's the thing. I'm going to dive into this more as we get into the video. There should not be, in my opinion, one overarching regulation body for crypto. And why is that? Well, crypto is not just one small thing. Right? Yes, there's exchanges, which are different than DeFi, which is different than, payments remitting. I could come up with lots of other examples, but crypto is challenging the status quo in many different ways. And if we try to say we're going to create one regulating body to oversee all of crypto, it's so varied and so diverse, it's going to be fraught with failure. That is unfortunately, I think, a very, very poor decision or poor comment that was made by Representative Waters. And I wouldn't go there or advocate that at all in the least. I think that leads to a lot of challenge and danger. So there you have it. Let's go on a little bit further into this article. So they mentioned on the market cap in the past 12 months alone, we've gone from 573 billion to 2.4 trillion. We're going to continue to see that grow as new projects emerge, as new capital comes in, all of that kind of stuff. Now, this is interesting. This is from Representative McHenry of North Carolina. It says this, the technology is already regulated. So his point is like, look, we already have regulation in place. And I'll mention what I think he means by that in a second. Of course, we need reasonable rules of the road, but the knee-jerk reaction of lawmakers to regulate out of fear of the unknown is only going to stifle American ingenuity and put us at a competitive disadvantage. I think he makes a great point here of like, look, we're not saying that regulation is not good enough or that we don't necessarily need more. He's just saying we already have regulation in place. Let me give you one example of this. In cybercrime, where many times threat actors require Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency for ransomware payments, we know that that's very tightly regulated. Treasury, FinCEN is two examples, very, very tightly regulate that space. So it's already regulated in some ways. But I think his point is this. Look, we need reasonable rules of the road. Let's steer this correctly, but let's also make sure that we don't just totally knee-jerk and create some crazy things that just pushes everything away. And I think that's a reasoned reaction. I really like that comment of let's put our arms around this in a smart way so that we can put controls on it, but let's not stifle either. How do we do that in a balanced way? And I think that's what this meeting was really all about, which I thought was good. So look at this. So this came from, and I mentioned Samuel Bankman-Fried from FTX just earlier in this video, but he says this, I think it's coming, and I think it's important, and I think that it's healthy, and the industry will be regulated. He says, I think all that. I think also that it's already regulated in a number of ways. It's important to do so in a reasonable, common sense way that reflects the industry. Again, I agree with this. I think that's the right way to go through all of this. Now, I wanted to mention this here. This one comes from Coinbase. Many of you are probably not going to sit through 4 hours of testimony in this meeting. I don't blame you. I didn't watch all 4 hours. It was way too long, and I have way too many other things going on throughout the day to allow me to have the luxury of 4 hours to sit back and watch this. So just like WWDC with the Apple events, I don't watch those either. I just watch the live tweets, and I just check into those every so often throughout my day. You can do this right here. Coinbase did a great job of going through all of this. And if we scroll to the very bottom, oh, I wasn't even showing it to you. Sorry, let me transition screens. There we go. So there's the article itself. And again, I will share this in the description so you'll be able to get to it. But if we go to the very bottom of this, we'll be able to see, here we go, kind of how this whole thing kicks off. So Maxine Waters, I mentioned Representative Waters earlier, kicked the whole thing off. It's, we're trying to understand. The part of this hearing is to really, grasp it. Again, that's the right. I love that she said it that way, kind of kicking off with, let's make sure we understand it. And again, I mentioned Representative McHenry of like, yes, but let's do it carefully. And then you see each of the 6 CEOs, CFOs jumping in, talking, kind of opening comments with all of this. And, Circle's CEO right here says, hey, look, let's be careful about this, especially with the role of stable coins and all of this. Let's be careful how we do all of this. Then FTX founder, I already mentioned him, he kind of jumps in and he's talking about, and I thought this was an interesting comment about, hey, look, it also has a lot of uses, especially for unbanked and underbanked individuals. And there's a lot of truth to this. See, in my banking days, we covered this a lot. There's a surprising percentage of the US population that's either unbanked or underbanked. That could be because they're foreign nationals that are here. It could be socioeconomic challenges that make it hard to get a bank account. And for that reason, we call these people unbanked or underbanked. Or it could be young people that, have their first job but don't have a bank account. And crypto certainly has a place for them in all of this. And we need to remember that and make sure that we don't have such heavy, regulation in place that they simply can't get involved in that either when they don't even have a bank account. So I thought that was pretty wise. There's a lot of other comments that you can jump into here, for each of these, like from Bitfury, which is like a mining company. They read and they talked about, and I thought this was a good point. They talked about, look, if we're going to do this, let's be fair with it, right? If there's securities enforcement, but you're not going to allow us registration, that's kind of contradictory, right? Or if we're gonna try to treat stable coins, with heavy regulation, but not grant them a bank charter, again, that's conflicting. Let's be consistent, I think, is his message to all of this. So there's a lot of things throughout all of this that you can really dive into, and you can kind of track how the conversation went, which each of the legislators asked questions on. And there was one that I thought was really, really interesting, which I'm going to jump into next. And that's, I was surprised by some of their capabilities of really understanding the technology. And this is good, right? Like, it's good to see that some legislators are up to speed with the technology itself and asking insightful questions. Let me give you an example of this. Look at this right here from McHenry. He gets a lot of, good marks in my book for really understanding the technology here. So he even asks about Web3. And he talks about how Web3 is going to change the game, and crypto has a huge part to play in Web3 because crypto is native with Web3 and its ability with wallets and ability to interact with things like MetaMask and allow for transactions directly from the browser. Web3 is really awesome. It's the future of web. And I think it's awesome. So he talks about this. And then even from Andreessen Horowitz, policy lead, Tomika Tillemann, first thing, this is the first time members of Congress are using the platform for a full committee hearing to highlight that Web3 is the future of the internet. Isn't that awesome? Like, that's really, really true. So, that's exciting. I encourage you to go through this. They took 4 hours and really just wrapped it up into, I don't know, it's probably a 7 to 10 minute read for you to go through all of the live feed updates. It's certainly not going to cover every little nuance and detail, but it'll give you the high level of what all you saw. And I think that's really awesome. So, that's a big deal. And I think overall the reactions out of all of this were positive. I was, again, very surprised to see the overall sentiment was engaging. It was conversational. It was legislators trying to learn from these CEOs and CFOs to really kind of understand what's happening and heeding their warnings, but also asking good questions. And look at this. This even comes over from Jake Chernevsky. I thought this is really interesting. If you don't know Jake, here's his Twitter feed. I'll put a link to it if you want to see it. But I agree with what he said. He said, this hearing's been overwhelmingly positive so far. I'm shocked. The members are well informed, asking great questions, recognizing innovative potential, and focusing their concerns on real issues like fraud. And then he says this, what's even happening right now? Like, I didn't expect this. I love the comment, right? That tweet is right on the money, is for the most part, these legislators got it. They understood. That's great. I will say, not all of them got it. We still have some old Stone Age representatives that, boy, they should not even have been on the floor. Here's an example of this, and I'm going to utilize my freedom of speech and my just everyday Joe American that's not been elected to any office and probably never will be until you vote me in for dictator. This is kind of interesting. Look what Brad Sherman says, and if there's ever a representative that should not have been on the floor today, who has no idea what they're talking about, this is the guy. Look at this right here. So this cracks me up. The number one threat to cryptocurrency is crypto. What? It's like saying the number one threat to the US economy is the dollar. Like, none of that makes any sense. You remember that movie Billy Madison, and he goes through his thing at the end, and the guy's like, nothing you said made any sense. May God help your soul. Like, that's how I feel with this guy. Like, what did you just say, dude? I have no clue. And then look what he says to further prove that he has no clue. Bitcoin could be displaced by Ether, which then could be replaced by Doge, which could be replaced by Hamster Coin. And then there's Cobra Coin. And what could Mongoose Coin do to Crypto Coin? Yeah, we know those last ones, he just made them up, right? He doesn't, this clearly shows a very foundational gap in his understanding. Does anybody say, when it comes to stocks, what happens if Walmart beats out Amazon, and Amazon beats out Target, and Target beats out Wes's store, and my store's beat out by your store? Like, we don't talk like that. That's not how the economy works. It's not like there's one crypto to rule them all. I think he thinks it's like Mordor, right? Like, there's only one crypto that will be successful of them all. Or like, what's that Highlander show where he cuts everyone's head off? There can only be one or whatever. I remember watching that in the 90s. Like, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works, Representative Sherman. Go learn some technology before you open your mouth. It's not like Bitcoin is versus Ethereum and only one will succeed. There's room for them all. The reason we've gone from a $583 billion market cap to 2 point whatever trillion dollar market cap is because there's room for more, because it's flourishing, because it's growing. So like, I don't know where he even came up with this idea, but it's really based on a lot of misunderstandings. The other thing I'll say is this right here. I love this tweet. So this is, you can actually go watch this and see the video of it. But Brian Brooks was asked this question on the floor. Of course, he is the CEO of Bitfury. At least I'm pretty sure Bitfury. Let's hold over him and make sure. Yes, Bitfury indeed. And he was a former regulator. Look at this, former CEO of Binance US, but then before that, comptroller of the currency at OCC, which is a banking regulator. So he's kind of one of them in that regard. And he was asked this question about like, money laundering and like Bitcoin being used for ransomware payments and all that. And, you know, they're just asking the question. I thought his comments back were great. His comments back were this. He said, look, he said they could have asked for diamonds or US dollars that had been mailed or something like that. We would never be able to track that. Super fungible stuff. Like, how are we ever supposed to find that anywhere? We could never track that and know which diamond was involved, which wasn't. He said, but because they demanded Bitcoin, we were able to track that, and we could track it, and we did track it. I think some of it was even recovered because it's in the blockchain forever with transparency. And those are comments that hopefully got legislators to scratch their head and be like, oh, okay, so maybe it's not so bad after all. Maybe there's some really cool benefits out of this kind of transparency and innovative technology. Of course there is. So that's just kind of an overall summation, but I want to give you some comments and just personal opinion. It's just my own opinion. I think overall this was a great hearing. I think the needle was moved forward. I think this was helpful for everybody to really understand, I think, how we can present regulation and understand it in a way that wraps around the innovation itself, but still lets it grow with just keeping it checked and not allowing it to be so stifled out that we sort of burn the flame out and force crypto to go somewhere else. Because here's the deal. Crypto is going to continue to innovate whether the United States is involved in it or not. That's the truth. There are many other countries that will happily take the tech, the talent, the resources, and move it to their location of origin. Let's not let that happen. I mean, I'm not saying it shouldn't go to other countries as well. It should, but let's not let it leave the US, where we're innovative leaders here. That would be one of the worst things that we can do. And I think legislators understand that. And so the way that we do this is the way I said at the very beginning of the video. We do not need one regulator to rule all crypto. It's too diverse that it will never succeed. The way that we make this work is we simply allow each regulating body to have its control where it exists. So for example, if a token is a security, let's define that, let's clarify it, and let's let the SEC have control over it. Maybe stable coins, if they're going to be this fiat kind of interchange, then maybe a banking regulator oversees it. I'm not making the call right now, I'm just giving you examples of let's regulate where it makes sense, and let's let the primary regulators that already exist just clarify. And let's be careful to not be overbearing and heavy-handed and destroy all of this. But I think most people in this space will say, we for one welcome our regulatory overlords. Just do it in the right way that lets us continue to innovate, and we will reciprocate that with transparency that will allow all of this to grow, that protects the consumer and allows us to continue to do all of the things that we want to do to make the world a better place. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. But I'd love to know yours. What did you think about the hearing? Maybe go read some of the comments before you comment yourself if you want to, but I'd love to know what your thoughts are on all of this. Leave a comment down below, and hey, I hope this has been helpful for you. If it has, hit like, hit subscribe. Really, I mean this. Share it with a friend. It goes a long way. I love having my ability to just sort of see these videos expand the reach. That goes a really long way, and I'd love for you guys to do that. All right, my friends, thank you so much.